Is this running now? It's a little late than usually shows up on my website because I had been having some Crohn's related issues today, and yes, I had some intermittent problems with the internet. Well, that's all working. This still isn't quite working just yet, but we'll get there. So that's why this is up now. But let me ask you a question. How do you deal with failure? You should deal with it by running into a corner and crying. Well, for a little bit anyway. So I've had a webcomic fail on me before. Jokingly, and I don't know if anybody's really paying attention to it, but it exists. And while the numbers on my website don't match the numbers in my social media, where I still don't consider what I've done so far yet a failure. How is something a failure? When you've lost interest in doing it and you can find no way to save it. And that's what happened with the Sprite comic that I was working on, called Tales from the Spriteverse. And I'm not going to go into details of why it failed, because that's not what this particular Soundoff is about. This is about failure in general. Suffice to say, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, well, no, this was my fault. It was all damn, they didn't understand. Truth is, there were some things they didn't understand, and there were some things that I didn't do right on my end. I never did get to really show off the story that I really wanted to tell, because I spent most of my setup trying to defend my actions and try to ensure that I was not making the usual Sprite comic cliches. I was not believed, and then there are things I should have done that just didn't work out. But the thing is, it failed because it stopped being fun for me to do. So I just decided to give it up. I didn't completely give up on the story. I probably gave up on making Sprite comics due to other things that were going on in the community at the time. But I never really gave up on the stories. And where every now and then it still kind of pops up and say, hey, I still want to be told. So I may do it in a completely different way than I had originally intended, or I may go back and do it that way. I don't know. It may never get done. It may be altered from what it was, and maybe a slight change. But I do with failures, you kind of get over it and you move on and you try something else. Do you really want to give up your dream? If you still have the drive to make it, then you have to find another way to make it, even if it's just scrapping your original idea and trying something completely new. Let me give you an example, not in the comic world, but in the internet reviewing world, video reviewing world. If you're watching this on the Channel Awesome fan blogs, you, of course, already know this story, but for everybody else, let me tell you of a man named Doug Walker. Doug Walker rose to fame on the internet as the nostalgia critic, the man who remembers it so you don't have to. Wow, that looked a lot closer than it does on his thing. But he did the show, and he started getting burned out on nostalgia critic because it was a lot of work that went into it, and it's like he wasn't having as much fun with it as he was. So he kind of left it for a while, and he started kind of a dream project of his that incorporated stuff that he really wanted to do, more parody work, more character stuff, as well as their stuff. And so he created a show called Demo Reel. And some of the people in the reviewing side are kind of cringing. Oh, God, he's mentioning Demo Reel. Well, yeah, I'm mentioning Demo Reel. I'm also going to mention Melvin Brother the Joker. I'm also going to mention the Bart's Nightmare Let's Play. These were things that just didn't go over for him. The Demo Reel really took a hit from some fans. I don't know why. I watched it, and it seemed like a pretty good show. I think it's just so many people were kind of insistent he had to be doing Nostalgia Critic, and this had pretty much replaced Nostalgia Critic. But I didn't get to see every episode yet, but it seemed pretty good to me. But it was a I guess you'd call it a critical, if not a commercial failure. We're passions for commercial failure on the internet. But there were elements that he took from that when he ended up finding the drive to do Nostalgia Critic again. He took elements from demo reel, the parodies and skits and things, and incorporated that into Nostalgia Critic, made it a fresh new show. So he took elements of things that failed, that he thought worked, and brought it into the No Show. And there's people who still complain about that, because there are people who complain about anything. Some people insist that reviewing can only be some guy looking at a camera riffing on a movie for a half hour. Like, that's not always all that interesting. He actually tries to do an actual interview. He pokes fun at the things that are silly, but he also is honest about the things that went wrong and the things that went right. He's actually defended Waterworld, which so many people seem to hate, but he said, no, here's things that I actually like about Waterworld. And something I do in my daily comic reviews as well, is to say, this is things the comic did right, even though I don't like it. Here's stuff the comic did wrong, even though I enjoyed it. And that's something he did. So he takes his negatives and he turns them into positives. Even the stuff, the other things that I mentioned that failed, he uses them as a source of comedy. He pokes fun on himself. He does not take himself and his work so seriously. He takes it seriously in how he's in creating it, but he doesn't take it so seriously that when a failure hits, he ends up in a corner crying. He rolls with the punch. He recuperates from the failure and just makes something better out of it. And I think that's something that can be learned in our cartoon side as well. If you come up with a comic and a storyline or a joke or whatever just fails miserably, go back and look at it. Take that critical eye that I mentioned earlier. Go back, look at it, see what you did that was actually good, and the stuff that you did that might have been wrong, and say, okay, how do I avoid these pitfalls in the future? How do I take the stuff that worked and make it work better with my next project? Is there some ideas here that I could save for the future, stuff that maybe was specific to this project that I can't use elsewhere, but still learn from the mistakes? You're going to fail, no matter what. I've seen some of the best writers, artists, creators in the world come up with something that just bombs. It happens. If it's going to happen to somebody like Doug Walker, it's going to happen to somebody like me. If it's going to happen to George Perez, or it's going to happen to you. It's unavoidable. Nothing is going to be 100% perfect. We are not perfect beings. We are flawed. We do make mistakes, or something that seems like a great idea may be a great idea to us and not to everybody else. So what you do with it is seeing what worked, what didn't, and try again with your next project. Learn from your mistakes. If you still want to make comics, if you still want to make internet reviews, you want to make something else, go back, look through your thing. As much as you may hate it, go back to what you did before. See what you did wrong. Do it better. See how you can do it better next time. Don't give up your dream just because you fail. You're going to fail. You're going to fail again. You failed before, you're going to fail again. Something's not going to go quite the way you wanted it due to time or illness, or just something that worked better for you than worked better in your head than it did on the final product. It's going to happen. It's happened to me a lot in so many areas of my life besides just the creative pursuits. But you don't give up. You say, I still want to do this. This is still my dream. This is still my goal. This is still my passions, what I'm driven to do. Let me see what I did wrong and try to do it better next time. Maybe even get some of your friends to look at it and see what you did, what you might have done wrong, what you can do better. Never give up on your dreams just because something didn't go right once, because you may still have a chance to become one of the greats of your time. Nobody starts out being perfect, and even the perfect people still slip up down in that. It happens. And I am running out of time. I think I said everything I need to anyway. Follow the hashtag #ArtSoundoff or the Twitter account #ArtSoundoff to follow more of the @Soundoff creators, and go to leantoart.com/artsoundoff to learn more about this project. You still have plenty of time to join in if you want. And there's some really interesting people that are producing stuff. But I am out of time. Here comes the beep. And we will see you later. Until then, happy creating.